people oftentimes think of WeWork as a real estate company. And yet that's actually where our origins come from, right? Originally, WeWork was a company that would rent buildings and would literally, I'm going to oversimplify, but would slice them up and rent them out to other people with a main value proposition to small companies saying, hey, it's your turn to be at this amazing address. It's now you can also be, at the corner of street A with street B. As the company evolves, what becomes extremely powerful and probably the main reason why the brand today resonates so much with so many different types of companies is just the energy that you can find within a WeWork office. So, we have a lot of internal phrases that I think symbolize what WeWork really stands for. One of them is community made. What is community in our world? Community in our world are all of the people that are inside a building, making that building work. So literally the WeWork employees that are in there ensuring anywhere from the really practical side of things, is the building clean? Is the coffee fresh? Are all the air conditionings working, etc. But there's also another part of this, which is really creating connections. So in any given WeWork building, you can have anywhere from 100 to 1,000 people inside of a building. And the capability that is created in that environment for those people to connect with each other, be it big companies, be it small companies, for people to exchange, for people to literally do business together, or eventually have a mentoring program, or just have a beer at the end of the day. All of these things are literally the bricks that make WeWork be what it is today. So this philosophy of community made also connects very strongly with my favorite phrase, which is do what you love always, or always do what you love. Either way you want to read it, it's valid, right? And there's something so powerful about you working at a company that believes that your work and your day-to-day at the office should be something that inspires you, should be something that makes you feel like you're doing what you love. The other phrase that I personally love, it's a phrase that's, was very strong a couple of years ago, but I can't let go of it, which is thank God it's Monday. So traditionally, all of us, TGIF, thank God it's Friday. There's this whole symbolism around the fact that it's Friday and I don't have to work on Saturday and Sunday. When you suddenly twist that into thank God it's Monday, it says a lot, right? So if you walk into a WeWork building and you see that sentence, it's like, wow, thank God it's Monday. Wait a minute, maybe I should rethink all of my choices. I really should reflect on, where do I work? What kind of job do I have? And does that place make me feel like, thank God it's Monday? And is it something that I love, right? So the WeWork philosophy, there's no better way to describe it than with those three examples. This is what we want to build in our buildings. When you step into a WeWork building, you have not only the architecture part, which is the meticulous choice in colors, in furniture, in the lighting, but also just this energy that exists among all of the members. So everybody that's in a WeWork office, we refer to them as members. And Victor, a little bit around, why that speaks to me in such a strong way is I've been an entrepreneur since I was 13 years old, literally. So I used to wash cars. I used to babysit. I used to walk dogs way before dog walking was a career. I used to paint houses. I've even driven taxis, just to give you an idea of all of the things that I did when I was in my teenage years, my early adulthood years. Always very focused on, hey, I want to be able to put my energy and my ideas into something that I believe, right? It doesn't matter if it's dog walking or if it's car washing. When you're 14, 15, there's only so far that you can go with those ideas. But from an early, very early stage in my life, I realized that I wanted to build and I wanted to create and I wanted to drive change. So overall in my career, that's been my main motivation. All of my decisions have been very powered by do what you love, and thank God it's Monday. So my rule with myself is, if I start waking up in the morning feeling like, oh, I don't want to go to work, red flag, there's something wrong, right? It's time to sit down with my boss and have a conversation. It's time to reflect on whether I want to move on to a different challenge within the company. It's time to move on to another project, because really, I believe that when we are happy to wake up on Monday to go to work, that's when we thrive. And that's truly when we give the best that we have to give, right? So that said, my career has had several different passages. I have been in Brazil now, back in Brazil for 20 years after living in the US for many years. I've been always in digital tech in several different projects, spent many years in the financial services, leading what now has become this fintech revolution. And recently, before WeWork, I was the leader for Uber Brazil. So Uber Brazil is one of Uber's biggest markets around the world. And I had the privilege to lead that amazing team for 3 years. And, making the connection with WeWork, the challenge right now that WeWork has in front of the company and all of its members is really leading what the future of work is going to be, right? So we've been having all of these discussions with COVID and pandemic and home office and homeschooling and what that has done to corporate culture, what that has done to, the way that we work. And WeWork is the company that is best positioned to truly lead this conversation and to truly be a reflection of what is happening in the market, be it for small companies that are, startups that are going to multiply 10x, 20x, 30x in the next 2 years, be it for large enterprise companies that want to change their culture or simply want to change the way that they are going to ask their employees to go back to work after these, 2 years of experience that we've had. So when you put all of that together, you connect the WeWork philosophy to, my personal motivations and what has been my main drive during my career with what, in some aspects is a turbulent time. We can't say that we're living through calm times right now. None of us, right? Not at work, not in our personal lives. But it really is the beginning of a real revolution in the way that we work. I believe there's going to be a very big change in the way that companies are going to deal with hierarchy, the power that the base of the pyramid is going to have, based on the history where the base literally just obeyed. We've seen a drastic change in how powerful the base is and how much the base is pushing leadership to drive change. So exciting times, turbulent times, but from a future of work perspective, we are living through literally a life-changing moment. And for me, it's obviously super exciting to be leading the team in Latin America and in Mexico. And it's funny because especially during the pandemic, we have increased significantly the percentage of enterprise companies that are with us. So enterprise companies are companies that are traditional companies, big companies that have, 100 plus employees that together with their size come very specific requirements, right? Some of them want to be completely isolated. They want their own entryway, their own door. They don't want their common areas to be shared. Others want their common areas to be shared because they want to drive cultural change and they feel that it'll be healthy for their employees to be in the same environment as family-owned companies, as startup companies. So there's, like you said, there's a little bit of everything. What's been extremely interesting to observe during the pandemic is that we WeWork in Mexico had been operating with 50% small, medium businesses and 50% enterprise companies. And what we observed when we look at these numbers at the end of 2021 is this number has shifted to 60% of our members belong to enterprise companies and 40% now belong to SMB. And this number it represents what's happening in the market. It also represents our evolution as a company, right? We started off as a company that truly believed that the entrepreneur needed to be in a place where they had no headache. They didn't have to worry about, the air conditioning or whether the security of the building was appropriate. They just wanted to move in. And the next day, if they wanted to hire 50 people, they just wanted to say, hey, I need 50 more desks. That's very much the origin of our company. But what we've realized, especially during this evolution for the pandemic, is that this concept is applicable to all sizes, right? More and more companies are becoming focused on what is core to their business. More and more, they want to spend their time and their money and their energy on what is core to their business. And they don't want the distraction. So that's one thing. The other thing is, given the fact that we are living through very uncertain times, the amount of meetings that I have had with CEOs, with talent, chief talent officers, with even facilities team, where they say, Claudia, I have no idea what this is going to look like in a year, right? Today, 50% of our employees want to come back. We have no idea if over the course of the next 12 months, 100% are going to want to come back, or if less are going to want to come in. So that's one big doubt. And that's one thing that makes the WeWork model extremely appealing to them. The other behavioral change that, Victor, we've seen is companies understanding that one of the main issues is transportation and the distance that people many times live from their day-to-day office, right? In Latin America cities primarily, right? Our public transportation normally is not where it should be. We normally have a lot of traffic. The big cities are super dispersed.
Yeah.
And what employees have realized is, hey, it's not productive for me to spend 2 hours of my day on a bus, on the metro, in a car. That could be time that I could either be working more or time that I could be, exercising, spending more time with my kids, studying a course, getting my MBA or whatever course I want to get. So this has changed the way big companies have looked at this. And they've started to explore models that we call hub and spoke. So they'll have their headquarters many times originally where it is, but they work with a flexible product that we call All Access, which is basically a pass that you can use any WeWork in the world, literally, but also any WeWork in your city. So, if I'm a company, I can say, look, this is my headquarters. I am not moving it, but I have implemented a policy where my employees can work from home 2 days a week. And I'm going to give them this WeWork All Access pass so that they can choose the WeWork that is closest to their house on the other days, or on the days where they work from home, or whatever policy the company comes up with. And it's funny because especially during the pandemic, we have increased significantly the percentage of enterprise companies that are with us. So enterprise companies are companies that are traditional companies, big companies that have 100 plus employees, that together with their size come very specific requirements, right? Some of them want to be completely isolated. They want their own entryway, their own door. They don't want their common areas to be shared. Others want their common areas to be shared because they want to drive cultural change, and they feel that it'll be healthy for their employees to be in the same environment as family-owned companies, as startup companies. So there's, like you said, there's a little bit of everything. What's been extremely interesting to observe during the pandemic is that we work in Mexico had been operating with 50% small, medium businesses and 50% enterprise companies. And what we observe when we look at these numbers at the end of 2021 is this number has shifted to 60% of our members belong to enterprise companies, and 40% now belong to SMB. And this number it represents what's happening in the market. It also represents our evolution as a company, right? We started off as a company that truly believed that the entrepreneur needed to be in a place where they had no headache. They didn't have to worry about, the air conditioning or whether the security of the building was appropriate. They just wanted to move in. And the next day, if they wanted to hire 50 people, they just wanted to say, hey, I need 50 more desks. That's very much the origin of our company. But what we've realized, especially during this evolution for the pandemic, is that this concept is applicable to all sizes, right? More and more companies are becoming focused on what is core to their business. More and more they want to spend their time and their money and their energy on what is core to their business. And they don't want the distraction. So that's one thing. The other thing is, given the fact that we are living through very uncertain times, the amount of meetings that I have had with CEOs, with talent, chief talent officers, with even facilities team, where they say, Claudia, I have no idea what this is going to look like in a year, right? Today, 50% of our employees want to come back. We have no idea if over the course of the next 12 months, 100% are going to want to come back, or if less are going to want to come in. So that's one big doubt. And that's one thing that makes the WeWork model extremely appealing to them. The other behavioral change that, Victor, we've seen is companies understanding that one of the main issues is transportation and the distance that people many times live from their day-to-day office, right? In big Latin America cities primarily, right? Our public transportation normally is not where it should be. We normally have a lot of traffic. The big cities are super dispersed.
Yeah.
And what employees have realized is, hey, it's not productive for me to spend 2 hours of my day on a bus, on the metro, in a car. That could be time that I could either be working more, or time that I could be, exercising, spending more time with my kids, studying a course, getting my MBA or whatever course I want to get. So this has changed the way big companies have looked at this, and they've started to explore models that we call hub and spoke. So they'll have their headquarters many times originally where it is, but they work with a flexible product that we call All Access, which is basically a pass that you can use any WeWork in the world, literally, but also any WeWork in your city. So, if I'm a company, I can say, look, this is my headquarters. I am not moving it, but I have implemented a policy where my employees can work from home 2 days a week. And I'm going to give them this WeWork All Access pass so that they can choose the WeWork that is closest to their house on the other days, or on the days where they work from home, or whatever policy the company comes up with. Because right now, what we can say for sure is there's yet no standard, right? Every company is creating their own policy. Every company is testing what works best for their organization, for their culture. But this ability to provide a different model that doesn't mandate that people come every single day into the same office is an amazing benefit. At the end of the day, this becomes a conversation with the people team, with the human resources team, and not a conversation with the real estate team, because they understand that this becomes a benefit to their employees. And this is a trend that we've seen that's growing. It's growing significantly in Mexico. We've seen it growing in all of our markets. And it's very powerful, because it says to the employee, hey, listen, I am listening to you, right? And I'm hearing what you're saying to me, and I want to help you solve that problem, solve that challenge in your life. So companies like Cabify in Mexico, companies like Cargamos in Mexico, are companies that have started to use the All Access as a way of either providing a benefit or giving flexibility to their employees for them to really decide what is the best way for them to work. So this 50-50 switch to 60-40 is super significant. And it shows that the flexibility of being able to grow and reduce, the flexibility of being able to work all over a city, all over a region, versus in one fixed location is amazing. And it's what companies are looking for. Mexico in Latin America today is our, Brazil and Mexico are always there in the battle of who is bigger. But basically, both markets are extremely relevant, and Mexico is extremely relevant. Mexico is the market that we continue to grow the most during the pandemic. So we opened 4 buildings. One of them we will inaugurate next week, which will be an additional 800 desks. So Mexico is a market that we've, really invested in. We believe in its potential, and it is today the leading market in Latin America. Obviously, this changes. Like I said, of course, like a good Brazilian, I have to, there's the competition is healthy. Let's put it that way. It's always healthy to have the 2 big powerhouses in our region competing, because it just makes both markets more powerful, and have higher potential. But definitely Mexico is a leading market for us. It is a market that we grew, like I mentioned, during the pandemic. It's a market that we are very, very close to being at pre-pandemic levels. So Q1 for sure, we will see WeWork Mexico operating at the levels that it operated before the pandemic, which is an amazing milestone and a super strong signal that the market is ready to go back, right? Will it go back exactly the way that it went back? We don't know. But what we do know is that the market in Mexico, not only in terms of members, is it almost back to pre-pandemic levels, but it's also the market that we have grown the fastest, the amount of people that have come into the building. So when we think about the KPIs that drive our business, Vitor, it's always a mixture of how many contracts do I have, obviously, because that's what drives occupancy. So how many companies do I have with WeWork? How many individual members do I have with WeWork? Because now with All Access, we have a lot of, individual autonomous leaders that have come in. They're sick of working at home and they want to work at a WeWork. But one important KPI is, what is the occupancy level? During these turbulent times, we are giving so much focus to how many people are actually coming into the building, because there's no use in having an amazing contract with an amazing company if nobody is using the space, right? Yeah. You know this just as well as I do. If you are paying for something that you're not using, it's a matter of time before you start asking yourself, hey, should I be paying for this or should I not be paying for this, right? So we also look at the traffic, and the traffic for Mexico has more than tripled over the last year of the pandemic, which is amazing. When we look at Latin America, it is, the strongest market in terms of access to the buildings. So it really shows that the Mexican culture has really started to come back into the building and has started to really, almost sense the need to be together again. Because at the end of the day, that's what it is, right? There's a productivity side, but there's also a side that is, hey, I want to be back in this building. I want to be with my coworkers again. I want life to go back to normal. So this is an amazing metric that reflects the power of the Mexican market. The other metric that we look at, obviously, is new sales, right? So we have the people that are within the WeWork offices, but we also look at how much are we growing and how quickly are we growing with new sales. And that has also tripled since the beginning of the pandemic. So obviously the beginning of pandemic, to be totally transparent with you, was a very tough time. So we did see numbers falling, close to 80%. And the fact that we have bounced back from that and we have literally tripled the amount of new sales is a demonstration that the market is super strong, that it's really plowing through. And obviously the occupancy is a reflection of that, right? So today we already have doubled our occupancy from the beginning of last year. The buildings, people are going back into the buildings. And the best part is that we can start feeling the energy again, right? Because what's a WeWork building without members in it, without the beer in the afternoon, without the happy hours, without the events, without the lectures, without the courses, and everything else that happens within our buildings. A bit about growth. How do we see growth going forward? A lot has shifted in the market in general terms. So obviously a lot more buildings are empty. Traditional companies have moved out of their rents. Traditional companies don't want to pay, they don't want to lock themselves into 5-10 year contracts. And then if something else changes from a cultural perspective, it doesn't even have to be a pandemic, but If their leaders say, hey, we want to work from home, they're stuck into that building. So obviously that changes a little bit the dynamic of the markets. And the way we see growth going forward is what we call asset light. So what is an asset light model? It's a model where we literally partner either with landlords or with other companies that want the power of the WeWork network, want the power of the WeWork brand, want the power of WeWork to attract members when they have the space. So this can either be, a huge company that had 20 floors in a building and now only needs 10 and wants our help to power filling the other 10 with smaller companies, with all access, with whatever other model might make sense. But literally they want to make money out of the other 10 because their employees are no longer using that space. It can also be a landlord that has a building that's ready, that he's not having he or she is not having the success of filling that building because things have changed. And WeWork can really come in and be a partner to fill that building. That building can be put on our network and be offered to all of our members. So with that, the ability that we have to really expand into other markets, it becomes exponential, right? Because traditionally, the path to growth was, I'm going to rent this building, I'm going to do construction, I'm going to get it ready, I'm going to get it to the WeWork standards, and then I'm going to offer it to the market. Obviously, that's a very long lead time, right? For you to do all of that, it can take you a year and a half to get that done. And the capacity that we would have to grow that way is just reduced because of time, because of the capital investment. In this other model, it's really more about finding the right partners and identifying who in the market is interested in partnering with us, literally, to build this building together and to make this building grow together. So long answer, but I think it's important just to give you some context about how we're looking at growth. The idea is, yes, to expand. Obviously, the expansion will be based on other important cities. We don't yet have a short list, but also based on, who will our partners be? And this has to be a win-win partnership. So it will literally be a win-win conversation where, hey, how can we work together to make this an amazing business model for both of us? And then that will end up dictating where we go. The other thing that will dictate where we go is when the minute you have these enterprise companies that are going into the hub and spoke model, or that have identified that their employees want to work in a different location from where they currently are, that can also be a very important driver for us for growth, because it will be literally a demand that our current members have to explore space in a new region of the country, in a new location. So that's a little bit how we see that going forward. I think being a leader during COVID, if there's one thing that we have mastered, is to reprogram sometimes once a week. So I consider it a privilege. I had the privilege of leading Uber during the most critical times of the pandemic, and seeing the company bounce back. And now I have the privilege of being at WeWork, with a very similar challenge. And the reason why I say it's a privilege, Vitor, is because how many times in your life are you going to be forced to be agile? Are you going to be forced to be human? Because there's a component of this, which is, keeping your teams sane, understanding the work-life balance better than ever, understanding that the workload for women was different than for men during the pandemic. So there's this very human aspect that all leaders had to develop during the pandemic. And maybe we would never have an opportunity to advance on so many aspects so quickly, right? Being open about the fact that the pandemic was harder for women than it was for men. Imagine if society was going to openly discuss this 5 years ago or in 5 years without it really being forced to have a very specific view at what was going on. And it's a privilege to be challenged to that level and to be forced to pivot the company, like you said. All of the things that we are doing today at WeWork were things that were in our strategic plan. The difference is we did them in 6 months instead of in 5 years. So having all access be this model that you can buy via e-commerce, that you can buy if you're a corporation to do hub and spoke, that you can be connected literally to the entire world with the same card. It brings a whole new set of members into our world. So traditionally, WeWork was a company where if you weren't a member, and being a member meant that you rented an office in our buildings, right? That was what you needed to do to be a member and to be within the community and to be able to participate and to be able to take advantage of everything that the building and the community had to offer. With All Access, you can rent a desk for an hour. You can come into the building, you can rent a meeting room, and you can leave. And all of a sudden, you become a member. And all of a sudden, you are part of that community. So it sounds like a very subtle change, but it's a huge change. It's a huge way. It's a huge change in the way that we understand how to use our spaces. Today, people use our spaces for happy hours, for planning meetings, because they are, they're still at home, but they need to get together with their teams to close their budget, or they need to get together with their teams to have a moment face to face where they can really be together. And WeWork now is an option for that. And it's an option that they can literally go into our website, send a message, say, hey, I need, I want a rooftop. I want a beautiful open space where I can host an event for 500 people. And WeWork is now ready to turn that around and make it available to you in, hours. Things that before it wasn't even on our radar as something relevant, and that's something that people would want, right? So being able to follow this change in consumer behavior is the richest part of the learning, because you don't know what's going to happen, right? Like, you have to see the behavior, you have to observe it, you have to be able to interpret what that means, and you have to be really quick to test, to try something different. If you take too long, you'll be left behind. So it's a balance of speed. It's also an ability to test and read results and understand if whatever you're testing is working super quickly. And if it's not working, you need to change it. So, one of the things that I've said very much to CEOs recently is the need for them to change how they listen to their teams. So traditionally, as big companies mostly, and small ones normally don't even have a process in place, we do performance cycles, we do, culture surveys to measure employee NPS. These things oftentimes happen once a year, max twice a year. Now, maybe they need to happen every 2 weeks, because what we are living through today is completely different than what was happening 2 weeks ago. And if we can't have that speed to read what is happening to our employees in this very short period of time, we won't know what's happening. So, I agree with you. I cannot wait to say that COVID is a thing of the past. I do think that COVID, from a corporate perspective, has accelerated a lot of the plans that we had in our vision. And today we have the opportunity of having these products live. And most importantly, we have the opportunity of offering companies what they really need right now in terms of flexibility and evolution in their business models, which is the richest part. Biggest change as well, right, Vitor? So what we've learned during this pandemic is that the boundaries, during 2 years, there were no boundaries, right? I would be in this interview with you in the middle of last year, doing homework and cooking and juggling all of the multiple tasks. So, first thing first is I run pretty much every morning. These last 2 weeks have been hard. I've been locked in because we have so many things that are happening right now, beginning of the year. And I really made a conscious choice to once again, really go in and become more secluded. Obviously still seeing the teams and going into the offices, but no traveling, et cetera. It's just become harder in the last 2 weeks. But the main exercise, literally the main exercise that I have from a mental perspective, is the exercise. So a lot of people say to me, oh, do you meditate? And I say, yeah, I meditate when I'm running. And of course, you say that to a yoga expert and they look at you like, oh, right, that's not meditation. And I say, well, each one has their format, right? For me, when I run, first of all, it's the moment where I become Wonder Woman. When I am running, I'm going to, conquer everything that I want. I'm going to become the fastest triathlete in the entire world. I am going to run an NGO to cure childhood starvation. Like, it's the moment where, I let my mind go, and I let it go. It's not on purpose, but it ends up being a moment where I dream big. And then from that, I start my day with, okay, that's the dream, that's the vision, that's where you want to go. But today you need to, sell some office space, literally. So now sit down and sell office space. So that's a very important part. And I believe that for every leader, of a big company, of a small company, even if you're autonomous, you have to find your outlet, right? And it has to be a moment where it's about you. And I hate to play the female card, but I do think that for women, it's harder. Our free time in general. I have a 13-year-old amazing son that obviously is my priority when I'm outside of all of my free time. That's where most of it is dedicated. So it's very easy for you to go into a routine where, it's family, it's work, it's household chores, it's, all of these other responsibilities that go anywhere from silly things like, oh, I have to buy the Christmas presents, to actually, hey, I have to wash the dishes in my house. And it's so important to have, I joke when I mentor women, I say, you have to have a selfish goal. What is your selfish goal? And they come back saying, oh, I want to travel more with my family. And I'm like, go back. That is not a selfish goal. And you'd be amazed at how hard it is for people to come up with selfish goals. It's just not natural, right? Especially in perhaps it is the Catholic origin of our countries. It is the core family values that really thrive in a Mexico family, in pretty much every market in Latin America, very different from other cultures, but people have a hard time being selfish. So my selfish moment is when I run. The thing I hate the most is when people say, oh, I'm going to go running with you. If you want to see me with like very angry face, it's like, who invited you? You're not invited to go running with me. And it takes people a long time to understand that it's not that I don't want their company. It's just not there, right? That is my selfish goal, and that is my selfish moment.
Your moment.
So that's how I start my day. I am have always been very strict about dinner time. I have lost count of the millions of times that I have come home from work, that I have had dinner, and that I have gone back to work afterwards. So I worked in retail for a long time. I worked for Walmart. Black Friday, it's like, the biggest day of the year. You don't sleep for 10 days before. I would say to my team, guys, I'm going home and I'll be back. And I would go back to the office at 10 o'clock at night and only leave the next morning at, 7 a.m. But it was a rule that I created for myself, to be able to really guarantee that I was okay with the way that I was making my choices between work and family. And like everything else, everybody has their rule, but I think people have to have their rule. Like, what is it that's going to make them feel 100% okay when they look back and say, hey, did I split my time correctly? And that was my rule. And it is my rule till this day. And it's been for me a very successful way of approaching the work-life balance challenges. And then last, obviously the leisure is a super important part. So in addition to running, I love sports. My vacations usually are around sports, either learning a new sport or doing something that is outdoors in nature, but also movement. You will probably never see me sitting on a beach reading a book. Like on my vacation, I read during my day today. I understand it is mostly part of my professional side of life, to be honest. So I like reading documentaries. I love reading, real life stories of amazing leaders. That's where I get a lot of my inspiration from. But when I'm in my free time, you won't see me sitting down. You'll see me skiing. You'll see me running. You'll see me playing tennis. You'll see me learning how to kite surf, which is my mission also for 2022. And that's how I like to spend my free time. I usually come back from my vacations exhausted because I'm like, oh, I did so much that now I need to rest. But it's what I find works best for the brain, right? It's the best way to disconnect when you're just connected with nature and doing what you enjoy doing. Your last question was around faith, right? And a little bit how I balance that. I like most people, I think, well, maybe most is a great generalization. So I won't speak for others. I'll speak for myself. I have created my own version of faith. It is not anchored on any religion. Okay. It is really just a multiple of things. It's a multiple of belief. It's a multiple of concepts that I have acquired from different religions. But very, very based on a couple of basic principles on, the way that I like to live my life. So, in addition to everything that I've mentioned, I love a full house. I like having my family super close. I keep my friendships for years and years. So my best friends are till this day are my friends that were my friends, my parents' kids' friends, and we were born together, we were raised together, and we've really invested in keeping these friendships. And a couple of principles that are important for that, right? One is just honesty and transparency. That's not only valid in our family life and our friendships, but also very much the way that I like to lead my teams. Sometimes I exaggerate. So over the years, I've had to learn how to be transparent, but also very mindful and very kind. So the balance of, being transparent and truly giving people honest feedback, for example, but finding the right way of doing that. So that will be constructive instead of that person getting upset or getting offended or reacting. So the balance of kindness, transparency, and obviously just consistency. I think anything related to faith and religion, there's something to be said about the cadence and the consistency. And that's also true in our human relations, right? Each relationship has a different way. I'm sure you, like me, have your friends that you talk to once a year, but that are still super close, and the ones that you're, with every day. But I believe that the combination of those three things really drives relationships that are not based on guilt, that are based on, true connection, based on you feeling okay 100% yourself and not having to be something that you're not to either impress somebody or, to put on kind of a character. I know that those concepts aren't exactly religious concepts, but if we observe the multiple religions around the world, it's some of the concepts that they have in common, right? And that's how, I've chosen to let faith and some of the religious aspects really, be intertwined with my day-to-day, not only in my personal life, but also in my professional life.